I am grateful not to be of school age anymore. Like, I really am. But low-key, I love learning and studying. Like, if I could be a professional student, like if that was a thing, I would. However, comma, school is not always the best. Sometimes there's bullies, sometimes the faculty are jaded and they take it out on the students. Sometimes it just sucks. So here are my favorite horror movies that capture like all of the different facets of back to school time. For these movies, I'm sticking to ones where like the school factors into the plot heavily, whether it's directly about school type things or a good portion, majority portion of the action is taking place in a school. So in no particular order, my first favorite kind of like back to school horror movie is Battle Royale. And I know I just said a whole lot about what my criteria is, and Battle Royale does not fit that criteria. But I feel like the children versus adults theme is very back to school. We still kind of like think of it as a school horror movie because they're all like in their uniforms. The junior high / high school stage is an interesting time, and I can only speak from my own experience in the US school system, but it always very much felt like we were being babied, like not allowed to do anything without permission, we're not given any agency, etc., while simultaneously being berated to act like adults when we were literally children. So something about Battle Royale just kind of like speaks to that like frustration for me. Seeing this scenario where a class of children are thrust into this situation of very real violence by the adults they're supposed to trust. Similar, obviously, to like the Hunger Games that came after and other dystopian teen novels like it. This movie also speaks to the immense burden placed on younger generations by the older generations. It happens all of the time. And it's kind of just one of my all-time favorite movies. I really love Battle Royale, so I had to include it here. Next on my list is Jennifer's Body. This is one of those where it like has enough school scenes that I feel like this counts as a school horror movie. Plus we have like a prom or homecoming, I can't remember which one it is, to be honest, whole sequence in this movie also. And when does a story about seeing your bestie transformed by hormonal changes not scream back to school? Navigating those high school friendships can be scary, especially when you have puberty and like sapphic feelings flying around. Jennifer's Body will always have a special place in my heart as well because it looks like my high school experience. Like obviously minus my best friend becoming a demon, but like the clothes the characters are wearing, the music, the technology, like it's my high school experience. So it will always be one of my favorite back to school horror movies. And amidst all the fun, this movie does tackle the complexities of femme friendships in a way that actually feels realistic and not riddled with stereotypes. And I love that. Next up for me is Halloween H2O, and I know it's like H20, but like H2O just sounds better. I think we're far enough past the most recent trilogy that I feel like I can like start talking about the Halloween franchise again without activating like the sleeper agent fanboys within this fandom. But I love an abandoned, like empty school moment. There's something always unsettling about it because when you think of a school, you think of it as a place that is busy, like it's always way too full of kids, like it's always overstuffed. There's always something going on and it always feels busy, so seeing it like empty is a little odd. There's also something like thrilling about being alone in a huge school, like in Halloween H2O, which is incidentally one of my favorites of the franchise, as it was my first introduction to Michael Myers. And imagine how confusing it was to like watch this movie first, but I was less concerned with like whatever plot stuff I was missing and more concerned with the awesome cast in this movie. I thought they were so cool. I loved the idea of a boarding school at this time too. When I watched this movie, I just thought it was like a really rad concept. It felt freeing in a way, but then you add a rogue Michael Myers to the mix and those thoughts were very much quelled, because being in a huge empty school with a serial killer is terrifying. actually terrifying. Speaking of boarding schools being terrifying, I have to include The Black Coat's Daughter on this list. So this is a dual POV, so like part of it is not taking place in a school, but a good portion of it is. And the parts that take place in the boarding school, it has been emptied for winter break, and there are 2 students who are staying there over the break, and one of them is in contact with Satan. This is such a perfect like slow burn scary movie, and it remains my favorite of Oz Perkins's films. The way like the setting, the weather, and Kat's story just like reflect this theme of like intense loneliness. And the ending. Even though this isn't a new movie, I am gonna put up a spoiler warning, because if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil this for you. But the way it ends with Kat/Joan crying in the middle of the snowy street because she failed to call back her demon and she's truly all alone. Like, I fucking love that moment so much. It is so heart-wrenching, and the entire film, not just this moment, speaks to this idea of like not fitting in and feeling lonely and abandoned and reaching out to anything, even a demon, for companionship. So good. And now for something completely different. This list would not be complete without The Faculty. It's a classic, a staple, if you will, in the back to school kind of genre of film. And I would bet good money that when you saw the title of this video, the first movie that came into your head was The Faculty. And for a good reason. It is a quintessential back to school horror story. We've got all of the stereotypes covered when it comes to the students and the staff. And who doesn't love a classic story about how teachers feel like aliens from another planet? The cast for this movie is also incredible. It's one of the main reasons I rewatched this movie at all, because I don't love the student-teacher relationship that gets touched on multiple times in this movie. I also low-key hate how they de-gothified Clea Duvall's character at the end. I hate when they do that in movies. Like, it's not enough that they defeat the evil and they saved the students and the teachers. They stopped an alien invasion. They have to show how everything is so much better because look, the goth girl is no longer goth, which means she's happy now. And I feel like Kevin Williamson's meta kind of script can only cover so much. I say all that, but I do still rewatch this movie because, like I said, it is a back to school staple. I also have to include Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2 on this list. I low-key love Mary Lou. She's super cunty. Love her to death. I'm also super fascinated by like prom stories specifically. Like, I never felt like prom was like a huge deal like it's made out to be in the movies at all. So there is something a little funny to me about like horror movies and just movies in general that like focus so heavily on prom. But this movie has some really fun like school themed gags, like when Vicky gets sucked into the blackboard during detention. Honestly, the SFX like on that still kind of hold up. Like, it still looks really good and it's a rad moment in the movie. And the protagonist is a Vicky. I have to give kudos for that because like the Vicky/Victoria characters in movies are always bullies or mean girls, always. And it is a rare treat to see a fine old girl who is a Vicky. And maybe I'm just like a little jaded because I got a lot of icky Vicky jokes like thrown at me in school because like Fairly Odd Parents and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I like my name, but it is nice to see a Vicky be a hero. Love that. And anyways, Prom Night 2 is just a fun school-themed horror romp with some creative kills. I also low-key love like when sequels are not at all related to the original. Like, there's something like really goofy and campy about that. Like, this could have just been its own separate thing, but they were also probably just trying to like ride off the coattails of the first Prom Night movie. It's just so funny though. Okay, my last 2 movies are like college/university picks. So next on my list is Happy Death Day. University was definitely a fun time, even though it was challenging, but having to repeat a day over and over again would suck. Colleges and universities end up being great settings for horror slashers. Like, I feel like because you have like new adults navigating this new phase in their life where they are required to be a lot more independent than they were in high school, but you're still in this like kind of like microcosm that is a campus setting. Plus the faculty really don't give a fuck about your safety because the students are technically legal adults, so nobody is like micromanaging your time. That's what I mean. Like, I'm sure they care if you're injured or stuff, but you know what I mean. They're not responsible for our every waking moment on campus, you know, so it's prime energy for a slasher. And because we repeat the same day over and over again in this movie, we get to explore the campus and beyond, and the kills change each time, and I think that makes it a really fun slasher movie. And I think it's a really cool way to include kind of like all these different aspects of campus life without it feeling like too much because she's repeating the same day. And finally, definitely one of my favorite, gotta be at least top 3 school themed horror movies is Black Christmas, the original Black Christmas. And I know we think of this one as a holiday horror movie first, and I get that and I agree with that, but I feel like it's also an effective back to school horror movie. We have all the elements that I mentioned above where the adults like kind of don't really like give a fuck about you. They're not like micromanaging your time like they were when you were like in high school and middle school, because the students are also adults now. So the characters have to navigate that on top of like these men just not believing women ever. And an emptying campus leaves less opportunities to get help and more time for your body to go undiscovered due to the holiday break. It's a scary setting for a slasher movie at any time, but like Black Christmas just does it really, really well. And there you have it. And aren't you glad you're not in school anymore? And I feel like I can confidently say that because looking at the analytics of my channel, I know that pretty much all of you are likely not in school anymore. So if you made it this far, I would love if you would share not only your favorite back to school horror movies in the comments, but also share your like most horror movie-esque moment from your school days in the comments. For me, there was like one time me and my friends were in our arts building alone. I can't remember why, what we were doing there. And we climbed up to the catwalk in the theater, in the auditorium. Mind you, I'm terrified of heights, and it was pitch black in that theater. It was very dumb and very scary. We were very high up. So yeah, that's my little story. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you later this week with more content, talking about some more horror movies and horror books as usual. Until then, stay strange. Bye.